Hi, y'all, and welcome to tonight's live stream. This past December, Jessy Kurczewski was convicted of murdering her friend, Lynn Hernan, a woman she helped as a caregiver, a woman she claimed was one of her best friends. Now, Jessy Kurczewski was set to be sentenced when one of the wildest, most unhinged letters you have ever seen leaked out. The judge had to delay her sentencing. Her lawyers resigned. What is going on in this case? Welcome back, everybody. It's good to be back with you. I missed it, even though I enjoyed having some time off. Thank you for your patience, and I hope you had a fantastic holiday. Are you kicking off the new year with resolutions? I would like to know that. I am curious what you're doing. I decided I was going to cut out sugar and eat better. And so far, we're January 3rd? I'm like 0 for 3. So if you have any tips, let me know about those in the chat or in the comments. But there's always tomorrow, right? That's the way I see it. So also, as we head into the actual video, hit that like button and it will really help with the algorithm. I'd appreciate it. So let's dive into today's case. As I mentioned, and I'm doing a double check to make sure, yep, okay, good, everything fine. So we did not cover the trial of Jessy Kurczewski because we were in the middle of the Charlie Adelson trial. But it must have been a doozy because I have never seen more drama after a case other than the Murdaugh case, which what can you even say about the Murdaugh case? But this case is a cross between the Murdaugh and the Murdaugh drama that happened afterwards and the Corey Richins case, where there was the Walt the dog letter drama. This case has become absolutely insane, and I just could not let it go without telling you about what is going on in this case. Jessy Kurczewski, now age 39, was accused of using eye drops, of all things, to poison her good friend Lynn Hernan 5 years ago in 2018. Now, according to Jessy Kurczewski's lawyers, Jessy and Lynn Hernan were close. Jessy's mother says that Jessy's mother had been best friends with Lynn Hernan for 30 years. And in her interview with police, Jessy said that Lynn Hernan was like her aunt. By 2018, when Lynn Hernan died, Jessy and Lynn had become friends, supposedly close friends, even though Jessy was only 34 and Lynn was 62. Now, Jessy says she was also a caregiver for Lynn. Here's a clip from the police interview where Jessy and her mother are talking to the police, and Jessy herself is going to explain her relationship with Lynn.
You and Miss Hernan were friends?
Yeah, she's my best friend.
How long have you known her?
Over 30 years.
Went to high school together or something?
No.
We lived in
apartments.
Okay.
So she was like an aunt, a second mom to me. She didn't have kids.
So you've known her your whole life?
Yeah.
And that's why you were helping her out?
Yeah.
Or?
Yeah.
Well, we're power of attorney and everything.
She switched her medical like the last 6 months. My mom was in charge of everything. And she switched it because with her working and her hours, it was hard for her to get a hold of her.
Mm-hmm.
So my hours were different and I could help her. So she basically, towards the end, I was taking her to doctor appointments, picking up her prescriptions, doing everything. And she was supposed to get in-home health care from the hospital. That was the only way they were going to release her because they wanted her to go to inpatient. And she refused.
She's now in her 60s.
So I'll go ahead and pull that out while we talk about it, and we'll come back to some more video. So Jessy herself said they were good friends. Now, Lynn Hernan was battling a number of health and mental issues. She was age 62. She had a history of depression, insomnia, anxiety, drug, and alcohol use. She told the hospital on one visit that she'd eaten nothing but soup for 3 or 4 years because her stomach couldn't take anything else. But Lynn Hernan's health battle was about to end in a brutal and horrific way. On October 3rd, 2018, Jessy Kurczewski called 911 to say she had found Lynn Hernan's deceased body. Now, police arrived at the scene to find that Lynn Hernan had what they said was a large amount of crushed medication on her chest and on a nearby plate. Prescription medication was scattered around her. The scene looked like an overdose. And at first, that is exactly what investigators thought had happened. But When the toxicology report came back, investigators were stunned to find that Lynn Hernan had a lethal amount of tetrahydrozoline in her system. That's a common ingredient in over-the-counter eye drops, but obviously you're not supposed to ingest that. It would be a poison if you did. With this new information, law enforcement saw the crime scene in a brand new light. They came to believe that what had really happened to Lynn Hernan was much more sinister than an overdose. And they began to suspect that this was a murder and that the whole scene had been staged to make it look like Lynn Hernan had unalived herself. And Jessy, who had found the body and called 911, became their chief suspect. Law enforcement concluded that Jessy had poured 6 bottles of Visine into a water bottle and given it to Lynn to drink, and then left the condo to go shopping using Lynn's money while Lynn was in the throes of a horrific poisoning. Now, according to police, that wasn't the only money that Jessy took from Lynn Hernan. They say she stole more than $290,000. Jessy's cellmate testified that Jessy admitted to her that she paid her own bills, bought kids' furniture and televisions, and even went to casinos with Lynn's money, and that she wrote herself checks. Now, I should say that the jury ultimately found that Lynn Hernan stole less than $290,000, but that was the allegation by the prosecution. And I want to say thank you very much to mamapinks. She's saying that she calls her New Year's resolutions casual promises, that she's under no obligation to complete. I like that. I like that view. Maybe I'll adopt that, although I really would like to do that. But so far, we're not doing that. And I also want to say thank you to Chris. Thank you very much. So, but the defense, as I was talking about the prosecution's view of what had actually happened and what Jessy had done, but the defense strongly disagreed. Jessy's lawyers at trial threw Lynn under the bus. They argued that the victim, Lynn Hernan, was sick and a complainer, and that she was responsible for what happened. This is a clip from trial.
I'm going to try her on Lexapro, half a tablet. She got heart palpitations, and she has numerous risk factors. Heart disease, obesity, hyperlipidemia, for which she's refused statins, tobacco use, recommends stress test. Concerns, the doctor doesn't even list them because there's so many. Instead, she says she has complaints. Complaints are concerns which include numerous, in capital letters with an exclamation point. The woman was a complainer. And I'm not here to bash Lynn, but this is just the person we're dealing with here. She was complaining. And notes such as she has depression or agoraphobia, fear of going out, or she appears older than her age, and psych, she's very argumentative. She seems to be depressed. She seems to be, talks about having nothing since her parents died a few years ago. What were the drugs in her? Baclofen.
So the defense also, and let me go ahead and stop it there. The defense also doubled down on Lynn's use of drugs and alcohol in an effort to prove that Jessy had nothing to do with Lynn's death. So we're going to get into that now.
Cyclobenzapine, hydrocodone, alprazolam, nifedipine, not fatal levels. The state says these therapeutic levels? Therapeutic levels? No.
And just to clarify, what she's saying is that according to what the prosecution argued, the amount of drugs in Lynn's system were just therapeutic, meaning what she was supposed to take, because the doctor told her to take that much.
She was well known to like drugs and alcohol. That never changed. Lynn grew up that way and she stayed that way. Maybe the pills changed or the alcohol changed or the drug of choice, but that's what she did. So it's just, it's so frustrating sometimes just thinking of like how she was, because
So I want to thank Jennifer Preston for her super sticker too. Thanks, Jennifer. So now in the interrogations, Jessy's statements were often confusing. Sometimes they seem contradictory, and I want to show you one example and make of it what you will.
I couldn't handle it anymore. And I'm telling you, I did not give it to her to kill her. And I did not put it in.
Why did you give it to her then?
I gave it to her because she seemed to think it was a good idea. She didn't think she was going to die from it, though. I don't think either, because she was doing it for too long. It wasn't making her, in that sense. I didn't think
Did
she
you
was
give it to her that morning?
I swear to God, I didn't. I gave her water. That's all I gave her. And I said, she always put it in. Swear to God, the 3 days that I was there before, and I threw in a bunch of Izine. That's when she put it in water and
When was the last
vodka.
time you emptied the trash? 3 days prior?
Yeah.
And you said in the lobby that you
Let me
and
go
Miss
ahead and stop that and pull that out again. So even though she said she didn't put the Visine in the drink, she also said, Jessy said, that there were 6 Visine bottles in the drink. Now, law enforcement overall did not believe Jessy, and she was charged with first-degree intentional homicide and theft of property from Lynn. She went to trial in October 2023. Trial lasted for 2 weeks, and then the jury deliberated for 2 days, 11 hours, before they finally came back with a unanimous verdict. Jessy Kurczewski was found guilty of murdering her friend, Lynn Hernan, and also of stealing from her. Prosecutors had argued that Jessy stole tens of thousands of dollars from Hernan's bank account and took out loans and credit cards in her name. Now, Jessy Kurczewski's sentencing was set for December 7th, 2023, but the suspense about the sentencing wasn't really all that great, because just the homicide conviction alone meant she faced a mandatory sentence of life in prison. So it seemed that the case was drawing to a close, at least as far as Jessy's case was concerned. Now, the prosecution did mention that it was considering some charges against Jessy's mother. But when it came to Jessy, the state of Wisconsin was pretty much ready to dust its hands off, lock her up, and throw away the key. And that's when the case took a wild turn that absolutely nobody expected. An unnamed witness brought the state a letter, and not just any letter, a letter that supposedly came from Jessy herself from jail. And this letter was supposedly a letter that the prosecution believes Jessy wrote to a friend, but apparently not a good enough friend that the person was willing to commit perjury and risk jail time for her. So someone, we don't exactly know the details, turned the letter into the Waukesha Sheriff's Office, which turned it over to the prosecution. Now, the letter looks like a detailed map for creating fake evidence in order to get Jessy Kurczewski off from the murder charges, or at least buy her a new trial. You can decide for yourself what you think about the letter. Now, the letter threw the entire case into chaos. The prosecution called the defense lawyers in to show them this letter. Then one of the defense lawyers called the Wisconsin Bar's board that advises attorneys about ethical issues. And both attorneys asked to be allowed to withdraw from the case. And the judge, who incidentally is the same judge from the crazy Darrell Brooks case, if you remember that, allowed the lawyers to withdraw, and then she had to cancel the sentencing. Jessy still has not been sentenced. So the prosecution filed that letter on the public docket with the court so we can see the actual letter. And that's what we're going to be looking at. We're going to start with what the prosecution said about what Jessy, let me make sure I can move it. Okay, here we go. What the prosecution said about the letter. Ms. Kurczewski asks and instructs the recipient how to create fraudulent documents along with a fraudulent cassette tape recording. The recipient received this packet of papers at her home and was disturbed by what Ms. Kurczewski was asking of her. And ultimately, the recipient decided to turn them over to law enforcement. They also note the original paperwork was double-sided, written on the back of her own trial note pages. This is important to note because Ms. Kurczewski has now written new fraudulent letters purporting to be from Lynn Hernan, dated in 2016 and 2017, on the back of her paperwork from trial, which obviously occurred in 2023. So the prosecution is saying that Jessy tried to get a friend to make up fake documents and even a fake recording, but the friend wasn't having any part of it and turned her in. And they are confident they can tie this letter to Jessy because some of the pages were written on the back of notes that Jessy herself took during the trial. So it had to be Jessy. They're her notes. That's their argument. And they point out the complete contradiction of writing letters that supposedly were sent in 2016 and 2017 on the back of notes that were taken in 2023. Because the only way I can think of that could happen is if she had those documents with her in jail and then took them into court and wrote her notes from trial on the back of them, knowing all along that she was taking notes on the back of bombshell documents that proved she was innocent, which just makes no sense. If she had those documents, she would not have been taking notes from her murder trial. She would have turned them in to law enforcement and gotten off without a trial at all. And that's the argument the prosecution is making. Now, here is the letter. We're going to move on to that. It all starts as a letter, apparently, to this friend, Jessica. And something in the text suggests that this friend, Jessica, and her two friends had actually shown up at some point at the trial. Maybe that's why Jessy felt confident in reaching out to them. So let's keep reading. So, and we'll skip one. The prosecution wanted to point out that there were stamps, but they were not canceled. I drew the red mark, but they weren't canceled, and that had the jail mark on it, meaning it had actually been in the jail. They want to use that to pull it back to Jessy Kurczewski. So at this point, this honestly is unbelievably fascinating, but I'm going to try to just do excerpts from the rest of it. It's a 37-page letter. It probably deserves its own video. If this really interests you, let me know. Depending on the response, I may do more on this. It's really fascinating. But for now, we're going to go as short as we can. Dear Jessica, I cannot spend the rest of my life locked, and I'm obviously cutting and going just to the highlighted parts. I'm not reading the whole letter. I cannot spend the rest of my life locked away for something I didn't do. This isn't right. I wish I had the jury names. I so want to reach out. Can I just say, let me go ahead and stop right there. Reaching out to the jury, that is such a really, really bad idea. When you think about it, I mean, they've already decided. It's not like they can come in and just reconvene and redecide the case. They can't just say, oh, well, now that Jessy has talked to us, we've changed our minds. Now we think she's innocent. Let's start over. So instead, what's more likely is that it would look like she was trying to threaten or intimidate them. So it's probably for the best that, as she mentioned, she can't go and she can't do that. So reading on, I've waited 4.5 years for this to be made right, and it got 10 times worse, not better. I keep thinking of all the things I won't ever do or have. The hardest one is not being able to see my grandparents before they pass, and not being able to have kids. Then there's my mom I worry about. She's got nobody left. She would have taken her life long ago, but I needed her. She's struggling with all of this and blaming herself because she couldn't deal with Lynn anymore. So I stepped up to help Lynn daily when she stopped, and because she couldn't testify. We had a pact of if things went wrong like this, we were both checking out. So whoever wrote this letter is putting on a real hard sell here. Unless the recipient, this Jessica person, does what is being requested, it could lead to the death of Jessy and her mother. There are a lot of emotional tools being used here. And now we're going to get to the part that made the attorneys start jumping off the boat. And in my view, they really did have to resign in order to protect themselves and their ability to deal with this. So let's keep reading. This county is so crooked. You should see just what I've uncovered in discovery since trial ended that they lied on the stand about. It is so wrong. So I talked with one of my attorneys, specifically named, and notice it's one, about stuff in person, and I got a biggie for you to ask of you. First off, this is big. I trust you, and whether you help or not, this is something I need you to take to your grave. Even this envelope didn't go out through jail mail. My attorney took it. Again, the attorney being specifically mentioned, being suggested that he's roped in. She talked to this attorney about this, and now she's going to ask it for him. And the attorney took it out personally. This was one of my attorney's ideas. She's not even admitting it was her idea. It was the attorney's idea. And clearly, they aren't going to tell anyone. I will never tell a soul. You can tell someone if it's to ask for help only if you trust them. And if you aren't comfortable, I'm going to give you another person's address and send it to them with directions, please. Now, the comment that she trusts a person to take it to her grave, I mean, that makes the whole thing seem underhanded. Why does she need to say that? Basically, it makes it seem like she's sort of admitting that whatever is being said here is wrong. But notice this part. She wants the person to notice that the envelope did not go out through the mail, that her attorney took it. Now, I'm going to call this person she, but that's just for shorthand because there's not been an admission yet, I don't believe, that Jessy wrote this. So she may argue that she didn't write this, that someone else did. Now, there's certainly the question, why? Why would anyone else write this? What would be the point of it? And who else would have this vested interest except Jessy? But for now, I'm just going to say she, and we don't know for sure that it's Jessy, and I want to make that clear. But let me add this too. The prosecution thinks it's Jessy, and you're about to see why. The person, she, is saying that one of her attorneys is involved in everything below. In other words, everything in this whole letter. And you are about to have your eyes peeled wide open when you see what the rest of the letter says. So the author, she, is saying that the attorney is involved and smuggled this letter out of the jail and apparently, I guess, hand delivered it, like put it in a mailbox, put it on the front step, something like that, since it did not go through the mail. That's the point being made. And that what we are about to read wasn't even Jessy's idea. She's saying it was all the attorney's idea. She is putting all of the blame at the feet of the attorney. Now, this is potentially devastating for the attorney because the state says the rest of this entire letter is a roadmap for creating, making up fake evidence and suborning perjury to get Jessy out of jail. That is career-ending material for an attorney, and the attorneys recognize it as that, which makes it even more important to point out that Judge Doro spent a lot of time deciding whether she would let them out. She clearly had to, and she did. But that gives you an idea. I'm going to do a comparison for you. Just how shocking it was that the Delphi murders judge kicked the defense lawyers off the case against their will. That's not how this normally works. Usually it's the other way around. The attorney is asking to be allowed to withdraw, and the judge is trying to figure out a way to make that not happen if possible. So let's keep reading. Do not talk about it on the phone or visit. Does that remind you of anyone else? It reminds me somewhat of the Corey Richins letter and sort of the whole approach. But it's unbelievable that anyone would think this person won't feel comfortable lying for me, because she's saying, if you don't feel comfortable, I'm going to give you another person's address and send it to them with directions, please. But imagine you get a letter from your friend that says basically, of all my friends, you seem like the one most likely to be able to help me by lying. But if you don't want to, here's the second most likely friend. And again, this warning not to talk about it on the phone, and it makes it look like there's an admission that this is wrong or guilty. Now, again, we don't know for sure who wrote this, so let me keep adding that. You can now see on the screen why it is that the prosecution thinks that it was Jessy Kurczewski, in addition to the fact that it was all about her case. I know that all sounds cryptic, because it is. LOL. We are trying to make a big stir to show just how wrong things are, but I need help because there's only so much I can do in here. First, you need to know I did not kill Lynn, nor did I assist, nor did I ever steal a dime from her ever. My old charges are that, old, dumb, young. And she's talking about other criminal charges from earlier in her lifetime. Love ya, Jessy. So it's actually signed by someone claiming to be Jessy, spelled just the way she spells it. Now, again, I'd love to go through this. If this interests you, write the whole letter in the chat or in the comments, and I'll know that that's of real interest to you. But there's a good deal of this, and I'm just going to give you the highlights today. So the person who wrote this letter is telling Jessica that the victim, Lynn Hernan, and we're going to see it now, committed a murder of her own, and that she murdered her own mother using Visine. So let's go down. So while I was in prison in 2013, Lynn's mom died. She gave her Visine in her tea when she cut her out of her will when she found out her mom found out she was stealing her money. Her mom died. She got dizzy and fell downstairs. No autopsy was done. So not only have they said that Lynn Hernan, had all these medical problems, that she abused alcohol and drugs, that was part of the defense at trial, but now this letter even says that she murdered her own mother, that the victim murdered her own mother. So that's what the person who writes this letter is trying to get this other person, Jessica, to do, is to come up with evidence that would support that. Now, this next section is unbelievable. She says she had some really good evidence that showed all of this, but she threw it out. So I'm at blame because I didn't save the stuff. But at the time, what did I need it for? And I didn't want anyone knowing what I found out. So here's what I'm trying to do: recreate that stuff. Wow, recreate evidence. Make up evidence is how I read that. I did what I could. I write up the letters, will, etc., and I signed all names, dates, etc. And that's what we're going to see in the next documents. There's actually a will written out. There are letters written out. There are things that would make all of this appear to be in Jessy's favor. And she says, the person who did it says, I signed all names, dates, etc. I need someone to look online for a notary stamp. Then you take the pages I wrote, copy them a few times, make a little lighter, then line up for notary and print more notary around, angle, turn, so forth, so it's not lined up perfectly. When done, copy the whole page again. So it's a full copy, not original. So nobody knows the notary seal wasn't a real stamp. So what she's saying is, I wish whoever wrote this, I wish I could recreate those Visine bottles that I threw away, but the prosecution is going to notice that those are new bottles. So her next idea, whoever the person is, but who claims to be named Jessy, wants someone to make a pretend recording of the victim's voice. And the micromanaging here is unbelievable. Here's what the person sounds like. Put music on in the background to mask any differences in the voice. We'll go ahead and read some of this. I can't do anything on the Visine bottles because those bottles are way too old, that none in stores would match. And the gun piece they know she had and bought, so it doesn't matter. I need to see if someone would make a voice tape. I know this is crazy, but I got to try. It's worth it because it's my life. If I could, I would. She has an older, raspy smoker's cough and was sick. Female voice, always coughing and smoking. I feel like there's programs online to change voices. There's so much technology these days. She was sick and did it 2 days before her death. Nobody's going to know if it's her or not. It's been 5 years. And I have the wording for that recording. Honestly, she even provided the wording for the recording. Honestly, you could even have a movie or music on in the background to help distract. She always had one on and loud. I would just be cautious that it's music she loved Gaga or a movie from before her death. Pretty specific, because if they forget and put on a movie after the death, the prosecution may figure that out. If you do that so it doesn't raise a red flag, like Pretty Women, Miss Doubtfire, Wizard of Oz would be ideal, her favorite. And then provides like a list of things you need, even says, make sure you wear gloves. This is extraordinarily detailed. So, and just in case it would be helpful, she puts that exact wording is. It doesn't exactly make sense, though. The friend is supposed to say, after my friend Jessy has been in jail for years, and let me go ahead and skip down before I read all that. Anything you buy, do at a store, not in Waukesha, and with cash at the Walmart, self-checkout. I mean, it's really the only thing worse than a friend who wants you to commit fraud is a friend who micromanages your committing fraud on their behalf. Because, wow, this is really, really, really detailed. And here is the letter that this person named Jessy wants to be sent. Here's what they want to be sent. I can't even fathom, and I'm obviously highlighting, I can't even fathom how a jury convicted her. On what? Lies, really. That doesn't make you a murderer. Point being, after digging around for 3 days, I found her evidence and sent the tape cassette plus paper to the judge in this case. So this letter assumes that the friend has done all that and now writes this letter to also go to the judge and to the other people involved in the case. Doro, the bottles of Visine and piece of gun have no bearing, so I didn't include. Now that part seemed really not to make sense to me, but the friend is supposed to say, after my friend Jessy has been in jail for years, and after she was convicted for murder, I finally got serious enough to look for evidence. And I just happened to find this evidence that gets my good friend off the hook entirely. And by the way, I picked the evidence I thought was most important. I, the friend, am writing, I'm only giving you some evidence because these other things, they weren't relevant. I didn't send you the bottles of Visine or the gun piece. That's not relevant. So I don't see how the prosecution is going to say, as soon as this comes in, the judge and we decide what's relevant. You don't get to decide that. So go ahead and hand all that over. And then what is the friend going to say? It seems to me the story's going to fall apart and the friend is going to be in really big trouble at that point. So now look at this: burn, destroy all papers when done. That really reminded me of the letter supposedly that was in Brian Laundrie's possession when his body was found. And it supposedly was from his mother and it said burn after reading. Remember that letter? So, like, are they using AI to write these letters? I mean, they seem kind of similar. Some of these ideas about that the various defendants are writing, but not so much the Laundrie letter. I'm thinking more of the Corey Richards letter. But whoever writes this tells a friend, destroy this letter. The problem with that is that it makes it, again, look clear that there's some kind of guilt, that there's some reason to hide this letter. So we'll keep reading. Wear gloves. Wear gloves for all. I will never say a word, and I will give you a chunk of money when I get out, because it's a big favor. If not, I understand, really. So the prosecution is going to say, this is Jessy, and she's offering to pay people to lie and to make up evidence. Now that, I would think, makes it likely the prosecution is going to bring up more charges. Then here is the tape recording, a transcript of what should be read on this tape recording, where they're going to play the Wizard of Oz in the background and use a raspy, and maybe do some kind of voice change to make it a raspy voice like that. So, and we are going to, now, what you see right here, this tape recording to record, this is actually an oral form of an unaliving letter. And it's been written out so that this friend Jessica is supposed to make this recording to pretend that this actually came straight from the victim, from Lynn. Now, the confession includes details about Visine, and the victim supposedly in this made up note goes on to say how great Jessy was to Lynn. The fake note just so happens to corroborate a lot of additional details that Jessy told the police. And that's all through here. It's quite something. And I'm going to flip back over here real quick. Okay. So we are going to skip over to page 16, where there's another reference to an attorney. And I wanted you to see that. When you write, everyone, don't use any return address. This is all by concerned citizen. It's easier so you're not involved. Yes, attorney said someone could use themselves if they want, but that's too much to ask anyone. And I can't read that next word, anonymous. I don't want them causing problems for anyone. So again, there was one more reference to an attorney. Now, may I say, I don't really necessarily believe that any attorney was involved in this at all, except that somehow that letter did get out of the jail. So someone may have been delivered. They may not have realized what it was. That's the only thing I can see that, but I don't think there's any reason to assume that this was definitely orchestrated by lawyers, or that the idea was actually created by lawyers. That is what's said in here, but I don't think that that's necessarily the case. So let's also skip to page 19, where she says, actually we're on 20. This is something else that Lynn Hernan, the victim, supposedly wrote. I need to get something off my shoulders. The guilt has been weighing heavily on me. I took matters into my own. She's talking about how she murdered her own mother, lacing her tea with Visine bottles as seen on TV, simultaneously making the victim having used the exact same method of murder before, and simultaneously making it be that that there was a murder in Lynn Hernan's past, that she herself had committed a murder. So it's sort of the ultimate throwing the victim under the bus. The victim not only used drugs, used alcohol, did all this to herself, but also now, in retrospect, is admitting to murdering her own mother, something she had never admitted in life. And I want to thank Jennifer Preston. Let me head over here. Did I already do that? I'm sorry, I'm getting confused. But in any event, thank you, Jennifer, if I haven't already thanked you. All right, so prosecutors found, as you will remember, a bizarrely similar letter from Corey Richens, and they say that Corey intended to send the letter to her mother, and she was trying to get her mother to pass this letter on to her brother so he would know how to more effectively lie for her. But it had nothing on this letter. You know, Corey really is going to, if she wants a writing career, as she claims it was now just part of a novel, she has got to take some lessons from Jessy, because this is really, really specific. And Corey was nothing like this, and she certainly wasn't throwing her mother under the bus. It was the opposite. Or, yeah, Jessy considered this to be her aunt. But there were some key differences too. For example, Corey clearly wanted her brother to say these things to convince Corey's attorney. She was not suggesting or claiming that her attorney was involved in the whole idea. And Corey's letter was, as I said, way less detailed. But Corey Richens claimed that letter was the start of a novel. Who knows? Maybe Jessy will claim something like that too. But one last thing I want to show you that really throws Lynn under the bus. So we're going to keep going down. And by the way, if you have any questions, go ahead and be putting those in. I'm going to take those in just a minute. And if you would put question marks at the beginning, and that helps me spot them so that I can be sure that I ask them. Well, I forgot to write what page number it is in, and I see, where are my other highlights to tell you about? Maybe there weren't any. I'll just go ahead and tell you what I had to say. So without question, this really throws Lynn Hernan under the bus. Now, the person who wrote this note even wrote a codicil, or an amendment to the will of Lynn, which just happened to do three things that would really help Jessy. First, it approved all the money that had been given to Jessy. And then secondly, and this was money that had been given to Jessy or to her mother, and that the prosecution had suspicions about and believed that had been taken improperly. Now, secondly, it claimed that a lot of the checks to Jessy were really a front for giving money to someone else. So that was written in this will that Jessy wanted to be notarized and wanted to say was the will, whoever Jessy is, even if it's not this person. And third, it left everything to Jessy's mother, Jenny. So this letter was like a bomb being dropped in the middle of the case. I mean, everything exploded. Both attorneys asked to resign. Now, Judge Doro did a thorough question on that, because she didn't necessarily want that to happen. This was sentencing. This was the sentencing hearing, just that close to the finish line. So she grilled them hard about whether they had a right to resign, but finally she decided she didn't have a choice. And I think clearly she did not have a choice on that. And she permitted it to happen. Now, as I said, that is one wild difference when you compare that to what happened in the Delphi case. So this, frankly, I can see at least 2 more videos on this. I don't know if there will be enough attention on this case, but boy, it is utterly insane craziness. Jessy Kurczewski has been left without any attorney. The entire sentencing proceeding had to be postponed because of the fact that she had no attorney to represent her. And I can see that hearing was fascinating, where the attorneys demand to get out and Judge Doro grills them. She's very reluctant. And then a deep, deep dive into this crazy letter would frankly be really interesting. So I'll just make a decision based on that. Let me know your thoughts and so forth in the chat. And I would be very interested in chat and comments. So let's see if there are some questions anybody's put in. All right. No, that was Marlon saying, do put questions. What? I was so clear that not one single question. Wow. I guess I should be pleased, but what? No questions. I can't believe it. So, well, it is awesome to be back with you. There is so much coming up. We are going to be covering the Troconis trial next week, unless there is a plea deal, which I have wondered about because they've set a hearing. And I'll tell you, if there's not a plea deal, then I'll do a video and explain to you what the case is going to be about. It'll be interesting to cover because it's going to be broadcast. We also have hearings coming up in Adelson, in the Hout case, the Delphi case, a big hearing in that. And most importantly, Murdoch has been given not just a hearing, but a 3-day hearing on his various motions. We have to jump back into that because I will tell you, that case is absolutely insane. The drama on that is absolutely crazy. I see one question from Jerry Michael saying, how effective would new attorneys be if they haven't been at the start of the case? Big problem. That what will happen is they have to be given a lot of time to get up to speed. What they have to find out about Jesse, they have to find out about the case. There's a lot of stuff that they're going to have to do. And if that's going to take time, so it will delay the sentencing. It costs everybody more money. The state is probably paying for the attorneys, and they have to be paid all that more because now they have to get up to speed. So there are a lot of reasons why they wouldn't necessarily want that. Oh, I should pull that out and just talk to you. So, oh, thank you, Tennis Girl. I appreciate it. She says, thanks for having an awesome channel. Thank you. I'm glad. Thanks for being an awesome subscriber. I really appreciate that. So thank you to our moderators, Marlon, Mama Pinks. Thank you to all of you who like the videos. That really helps with the YouTube algorithm. So thank you very much. And thank you to all of you who subscribe. I love having you. And I will see you. We go Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 7 p.m. live. And I will see you on Friday at 7 p.m.